like that, right?
I think the people that I follow are using Riverside, so it could be a Riverside bug. Okay, I can hear myself. Alrighty, so it looks like we're live on X. Looks like we might be live on YouTube. Let me just double check that. Yep. Gosh, I hate hearing my voice. I sound like a Muppet.
Nah.
I'm purposely not saying anything so I don't hear myself. Okay, there we go. Well, I muted all the audio that was coming through the different channels here. Okay, so we're live everywhere. GM, everybody. Early Morning Crew is back. We are a just a fraction of ourselves this morning, but it's okay. We'll still get through all the news we wanted to cover. We have Gramajo, we have Chris, and myself, and we're going to be talking about a few things. Also, Gramajo, thank you for always dropping the alpha in the channel so that we have something to talk about on these streams. I feel like you're probably the most connected of everyone in this chat that we have. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, always has some alpha to share. That's we never heard of actually.
Yeah. What do you say to
That's
that?
my goal.
That's your goal. I'm
My
gonna
goal is
do something you
to be
said to do.
connected.
Yeah, to stay connected. You are terminally on chain, my friend. You are terminally on chain. Nobody else can take that title, even if they have the paragraph username. We know who we're talking about. We love him. But by the way, for anybody who's been following our journey here on Early Morning Crew, this was a take, tongue in cheek, from Late Night Crew. I haven't seen anyone from the Late Night Crew in my feed, and definitely Late Night Crew, the show, has been offline for
Hmm.
feels like months. So good job, Early Morning Crew. We keep waking up and doing what we need to do.
Yeah, late night crew hasn't posted anything in yet. Few months.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah. I don't know. Some in this group ventured to guess that they made it from the meme coin market, and so they don't care about hosting their spaces anymore because they're filthy rich now. They made their millions and millions of dollars, so they've rugged us in terms of the content that they were creating. What do you guys think?
Could be. It's still pretty early on in the market to say that, but
Are you
I
saying
don't
that
know.
because you
Like,
haven't made it yet?
well, could be actually.
You're
Could
waiting
be
for your
part of
turn of the
the. Could be
cycle.
part of my answer.
I'm telling you right now, I suck at trading. I heard Dan
Yeah.
talking about trading on the space that he hosted last week with GM Farcaster. So shout out to GM Farcaster, friends of ours on there. And he was saying how he just sucks on trading. The only money, and I'll put this in quotes because I don't know if this is true or not, or he's just pulling our leg. But the only money that he's made from tokens or maybe even NFTs is long-term holding, which is true from me. If I've ever made any money in crypto is because I've either forgotten to sell or because I have conviction and I'm like, might as well hang on to it.
Yeah, actually, same. Like, completely can relate to that. It's like the most is always when forgetting, at least for me as
Yeah.
well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just,
Um,
Well,
but the
oh,
thing
sorry,
is,
go ahead.
like, I know, and oftentimes when you just remember, at least for me, it's like you remember last minute, oh, I have that. Let me just sell
Oh.
it. The next day goes like 100x.
My biggest horror story is I was a Luna holder. I had a bag. I had a bag of Luna. I had conviction. I thought, this is before the cycle of like a goldfish memory where like we jump into stuff and then we're out of it like in less than a week. I think Gramajo alluded to this last week where the meta runs so shallow these days where nothing really sticks. Luna came at a time where it felt new and novel. it definitely felt like we were trying something new in DeFi. And I'm all for experimentation. So I got a bag of it and I never sold it. And we all know what happened. And
Uh,
when I went back to look at how much I had, I was like, oh shit, that'd have been a nice conversion to USDC, right? But whatever. Had too much conviction
well,
apparently.
actually, because I was speaking to someone who was part of the like when Luna right before the crash,
Yeah.
like of all the top DeFi platforms, there was a group on Facebook of all the founders. Like we were talking about on a podcast episode about this. So there were like 75 top DeFis and like stable coin creators on Facebook. And
Yeah.
everyone was saying, like, everyone in that group was like, guys, this is not going to work. Like, everyone was super skeptic on Luna, but everyone else caught on. And then they just disappeared.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I
yeah,
was not in those
it
group
did
chats,
seem quite
obviously.
no, no, it did seem quite novel, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, we we can definitely talk about our our losses here because I'm sure combined, it could probably be quite a bit. Also, I'll say if you're watching this or for us here on the stream, let's make sure that we cast and tweet that we're live. It always helps to get people to know that we're jamming. So on Farcaster and X, I also did for the first time today send a post on YouTube, so letting our YouTube followers know that we're live. I'm actually very proud. We've been able to grow our following to over 2,000 followers on YouTube or subscribers, which is
Amazing.
I think is significant for us. I mean, I say us, but it really is just me running Crypto Sapiens. There's a small group of folks that have contributed as editors, previously writers, people who were helping with social media. But at the end of the day, and I think Chris, you might agree with this, and Gramajo definitely is like it. We have the singular vision, and so we're running this, and we each have our projects, and we have we have a belief in what we're building and why we're doing it, and so we're consistent even through thick and thin or bear and bull as we would call it here in crypto.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Cool. So we did say we were going to talk about a few things. Gramajo, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the one thing I wanted to talk about was a little bit of like a strategy I'm noticing from platforms, which is those that enable or are leveraging content creators and those that are kind of not using it. So the perfect like recent example would be Abstract, how they like really activated a lot of the creators
Mm,
for their launch, and then Barachain, which just went live pretty recently. And I don't think I saw as much activation. Maybe they did have a little bit, and I'm just not that plugged in. But I think it's they didn't do it the same way that Abstract did. I feel like with Abstract, like it was all over my timeline. All the content creators were creating content. They really like uh, brought them in on the process early and got them like to become like evangelical users almost. So
mhm.
um, that's really interesting to me. And the reason why I kind of bring it up is that we're seeing a little bit of this in other parts as well. So I'll give you like another example where I've been doing a lot of liquidity pool providing on
Mm.
Solana. Been having a lot of success there with that. And Meteora, which is like the new like Dex from Jupiter. Um,
Also on Solana?
they yeah, also on Solana, they basically were saying like they put out like a call to action saying like anybody. You don't even have to be like dub yourself a content creator. Anybody. If you've ever used their product, they're like, hey, create like a YouTube short, a TikTok, or write articles, whatever, and we will compensate you for it. Just talk about our product, like why you like it. Um, so I'm seeing a lot of that, which is really good because I think and they posted it not like too outward facing where it's like you'll get some of the grifters coming in and just trying to like extract money. They literally posted it to like their Discord server if you have a specific role, which is you pass their like liquidity pool boot camp, which is very easy. It's all free and everything, but like it's like just enough friction where it's like you know that the people that are going to post it are like actual people that use the product,
Yeah.
which is really nice. And then the other similarity that I'm seeing too is with Farcaster. So we're seeing Naomi and Zero Rights Media, which is also shout out Cody. Um, they're basically she's using her grant money that she got from Austin Jesse to activate new content creators for Farcaster, which is really cool. You know, like Farcaster for all the gripes that it has, all the issues that people have with it, they're starting to like lean in a little bit on like with the recent hire and all that. But yeah, what do you guys think about that? Like uh, a little bit of a shift that I'm seeing.
Yeah. I hear the boat behind you. Or the waves crashing behind you. So that's cool. But we got most of that. Yeah, that's a beautiful view, man. Oh, by the way, I'll be in San Francisco in a couple of weeks. So I'll hit you up. I'm out there for a wedding. So I'll hit you up for sure. But we'll get back to this. Chris, what do you think? I mean, I think for you, and I'll call you out. Like you're the optimism show. That's really focused on an
Yeah,
ecosystem. So, what are your thoughts about like that type of engagement from a ecosystem or platform to really get creators going with helping? I guess anyone who doesn't know or is unfamiliar with the product or technology to learn how it works.
I would say like on one side, it's probably one of the most efficient things that projects can do right now. But on the other side, when it comes to the creator side and alignment with the ecosystem and everything, I would say like also because of the amount of decentralization a lot of the ecosystems have, it's usually pretty hard to even align the actual goal with the creators and align with the actual ecosystem and be up to date with everything at the same time. So it's on one side it's probably the it can have massive benefits, but on the other side the question arises, especially for projects, I would say especially for even bootstrap projects, which we see more and more of on Farcaster, that I'm sure would be more than happy to leverage creators, but they only have that limited cap of what they can do. It's like what actually and who should they even focus on? Because also the algorithm changes I've been following recently on Farcaster, what Varun was talking about, also about frames changing, channels changing, and what are they gonna push? It's pretty blurry on the creator side, even to deliver results for this kind of projects. At least from my perspective, that's how I see it. And if it's focused exclusively on an ecosystem, also which ones to take and to actually push the project forward. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I used to work in the marketing department and even lead marketing for a couple of different L1 and L2 projects. And I can tell you that it's a very hard thing to find a balance to when it comes to a reaching out and saying create content because there's some funds here to go around, um, because you will get a bunch of trash, just people
Yeah,
just really trying to find a way to get into whatever pool of funds are available from an ecosystem, and who really don't know anything about the platform. Now, I think that there's three different groups that usually will join. The first one, and probably the most active, are people who are just like trying to get a piece of the pie, right? Who know nothing and will usually submit things that are either not at all about the project. They'll just submit any video. You're like, what did you read what it is that we're looking for? Because this has nothing to do with it. Or they'll submit very low value content where even though they talk about the product, it doesn't really help anyone use the product better, right? So that's one group. The other group is people, let's say like ourselves, who are proficient in content creation but also haven't really tried the product or are not in that ecosystem, right? So it's like if you told
Yeah.
me, hey, Abstract is running this campaign, I've never used their product. I actually don't even know what it is. But do I want to be able to tap into some of the funding or get rewarded for the work I'm already doing for free somewhere else? Yeah, absolutely. So I would go there and I'd probably have some sort of do some research to understand what it is they're doing, and then I would produce a video. Useful, high quality, but will it really add as much value as what the next group could do, which is people who are deep into that ecosystem. They've been using that product. They know what the community looks like. They know what some of the challenges are, and they would probably create content who that is much better, even though maybe not as high fidelity as the content we would create, still very much useful. And those are the people I think you really want to be rewarding, because first of all, it's your community. It's people from your ecosystem that are using your products on the daily. This is, I think, kind of the same thing like what you see happening on Farcaster. People are like, "Hey, I've been active here for a long time. I'm not getting a piece of the pie in terms of the Warpcast rewards, right?" Or anybody who's on base like ourselves who are creating content. A lot of the time, we're like, base, why aren't you engaging creators? Where are your rewards? Why is this so arbitrary where you like reach out to Afrochicks, though she's done an amazing job and you give her a grant? Why is this something that's happening so arbitrarily or not as frequently, right? You should have a program for consistently rewarding creators, and there should be a very clear guidelines as to what's expected, how you can submit it, and how you can get your rewards, if not automated at all. So yeah, it's a very interesting challenge. Not one that's without solutions, because there's plenty of ways to go about it. Um, really just understanding your customer. In this case, who are the creators on your platform? It shouldn't be that difficult to find out who they are, because they're usually pretty loud about it on social media. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing, but I do agree that there's a lot of value in engaging creators, to be able to um, catapult or springboard a lot of the things that are happening within a very small bubble outside of it, to a much wider group, because we all have our own networks too, right? So it's a network of networks, and we're trying to extend that information outside of it. To that point, I think Jesse's been, and I'm not never afraid of calling people out. Like Jesse's talked a lot about creators on X, right? Especially, I haven't seen anything really come from base that talks very clearly about guidelines and ways to engage and reward creators. Maybe they're working on that. I can tell you, I'm consistently knocking on their door, asking these questions. In fact, I'll be hosting an event in Denver for creators, and I'm knocking on their door to have them not just show up but support the event, because these are the people that they claim to really want to reach out to. We'll see, right? But this should be clear, I guess is what I'm saying. It should not be a difficult decision to be able to or difficult for the creator, I should say, to be able to create something and say, yeah, I know I'm going to get paid because I'm creating banger content that they're asking for based on these guidelines.
But also on that point, like when it comes also to creators, like from what I've noticed, then also there have been even more talks from Base that now with the Coinbase wallet partnership and Farcaster and however that is going, like there's gonna be even more push over there. Uh, I think that especially what you said about the target audience and similar, they might not even be entirely clear of who they really want to bring in. Because on one side, yes, it's the developers, it's the builders, but a lot of developers and builders build amazing stuff, but they don't really want to create stuff around it. Just as you said, like the community would rather create something for, or someone who's not necessarily technical would promote it a lot better if they make that their main goal than actually someone who's just wants to build. They don't necessarily want to get out there. So it's on one side, I would say like that is also the some of the dynamics that would need to be looked in, especially to approach the problem from like an efficient standpoint.
Yeah. Gramajo, anything else you wanted to add to this? Because I know you brought this up to us.
Yeah, I think their guidelines for understanding of how you can get
Can't really hear you.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah. I think he was agreeing about the guidelines, though, is what I was hearing. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be clear. This is, I used the word table stakes this weekend on a cast, and I'm going to say here, this is table stakes for, engaging and rewarding creators. We're in 2025. Crypto's come a long way. There's absolutely no reason why this shouldn't be a very easy win for both platforms and creators. To that point, Chris, I'm going to double down on what you said. Absolutely. With Coinbase Wallet integrating Farcaster Social Graph, could be a much easier way to reward people, right?
But
Because you already know who they are, who they follow. You could connect directly to their content on Farcaster through this graph. So if you want to reward something, boom, immediately through Coinbase Wallet, send them like 5 USD or whatever, USDC.
one thing I'd add over there, just as you brought Coinbase Wallet, it from what I've noticed, it's also from a creator standpoint, it's also pretty unclear of how to even approach these new developments. In the sense of like, yes, like you say, like there's gonna be new stuff for creators, you're gonna be pushing creators, but there's no clear guidelines of what creators should do in order to get to that next step.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're in agreement here. There should be a lot more clarity in terms of what it is that they're looking for. Because at the end of the day, if you just also do a vanilla call to action for people to create content, you're probably going to get trash.
Yeah.
People like Afro Chicks, she's like a, one of a kind. Like the content she's out there creating isn't just good in terms of the fidelity, because of the equipment she uses, but she's also incredibly smart and talented when it comes to the way that she produces her content, right? You look at the fact that
Yeah.
she's tapping into the memetics of media. She's leveraging some of these things that people will do on TikTok, and then she'll introduce that, but talk about crypto. So the people on the streets, when she's talking to them, are like, "Oh, this is another TikTok video. I'm familiar with that. I know what to expect out of this conversation." As much as we love Jesse, him tapping and touching people in the streets, so I was like, "Oh, cringe! Don't touch the people that you're talking to." Like, I don't know. That's the world I come from. Like, you can talk to him, but you don't reach out, and even if you're mean to say thank you, it's just a little weird. But with that said, I know he really tried hard and went out and got a lot of views because he's Jesse. But that it's a bit cringe overall. Like, it wasn't very well produced, but that's not his job, right? His job is to tap in people like us to go and do that. So if anything, that cringe moment was a good call to action for us to be like, we can do this better. Like, put us in, coach. So now we just need a system for putting us in, coach. So that's all we're
Yeah,
saying.
but also the other thing is like from a creator standpoint, even as creators, I would say we need to be more what's the correct word? Like more aligned with what each of us is doing and like more in like practical, okay, you're focusing on this project and you're working on this project. I'm working on that project. What is something that as creators that now that we are getting that attention, we can do to align these two to practically not just double the attention, but the exponentially grow. So also the dynamics of practically, I would say collaborating, but mostly organizing the creator landscape would play a large role in the coming months, maybe.
Say more. Because I had an idea on this, and this is kind of where Cabal started. It got a little muddy with the token, but at the end of the day, I do think I have some thoughts on this, but I'd love for you to say more. What do you think creators can do better to align with whatever it is that they're doing or whatever you meant?
I would say first we well that's the question that I've been asking myself actually. That I have not really come up with a clear answer to, but one of some of the ways that I have to think about a second about that.
Well, while you do that, I'll basically say that I started Cabal, or the on-chain media cabal, as I've been calling it, or on-chain creators cabal, excuse me, as a way to bring creators together and kind of share resources and help each other out, like basically boost one another. Because at the end of the day, as far as creators go, there's a handful of folks that have visibility on platforms like X, right? The rest of us, no matter how much work we do, and we're talking about people who've been putting in the work for a long time, Diana included, the the visibility or network effects that we get for our content is very small. And so the concept behind the on-chain creators cabal is that we are here to really boost one another so that through our networks others can succeed and have visibility into the content and work that they're doing. And really, because at the end of the day, doesn't matter if it's coming from Area 51 or the Optimism Show or Crypto Sapiens or whatever. What matters
Hmm.
is that the information that we're researching and explaining for people gets to more than the 10, 100,000 people that follow us, right? It should get to as wide at the widest group possible. And I don't think that we're still doing a good job at that. I don't think that we're supporting each other as well as we should.
What are
And
what?
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. Like on that point, like where you're the supporting side, and I agree completely with the points that you just mentioned about sharing resources and practically collaborating and similar. But what are some of the things that, for example, through your experience with Crypto Sapiens and working on different projects, creators should primarily, for a start, collaborate on to start seeing that traction? Because as a creator, I think a lot of the things like, okay, we all have different ideas. We should do that. We should do this. But what is that first step that if we all align to focus on will benefit everyone? So then we can move on to the next thing. Like, what is that first simple step, even that to break it
Yeah.
down?
I mean, the easiest one, and I think the thing that costs the least amount of time or effort is just retweeting or recasting each other's stuff. Like if there's a way to just boost, that's the bare minimum in my opinion. Recasting and liking are such slow signals, but if done in numbers, can really help, both in terms of
Yeah.
getting your work into that creators network, but also having the algorithm detect that there's value in what it is that you are posting or casting, and then overall getting that viral kind of loop started. The one that I really wanted to get more traction around is that, and by the way, this is not new, this is how marketing in web 2 works, is that as creators in this cabal, we can all agree on a topic that we're going to be talking about and then flood the airwaves with
Hmm,
that message. So in this case,
good point.
you with the Optimism Show, Gramajo with Area 51, me with Crypto Sapiens, Diana with, Rehash, just everyone. Let's just say all the creators on Farcaster, right? To keep it simple, which there are a lot, but not as many as on X. We agree on a topic for the week or a month that we think is valuable and important to cover. And then we create content because by the way, we all do it very differently, right? Like I have a
Yeah.
newsletter that I've been growing. We have about 6,000, subscribers to that. Very proud of that. We have a YouTube where we have 2,000 subscribers. Proud of that. We create content in different ways through all of these different channels. So we're engaging, the readers or the viewers on those platforms natively in a way that they're, not doesn't have a lot of friction. You do it your own way. Gramajo does it his own way. Everyone does it their own way. And then we all put that message in the airwaves. And the likelihood is that anybody who's watching our podcast or watching our live streams or reading our newsletter is also subscribed to one or five other people that are in that space. And if they see that message coming through five different channels from five different communities or creators, it's going to make them scratch their head like, wait, why is everybody talking about this? And it's most likely to get people to take action. right? And to do
That's a good
something
point.
beyond just looking at it or reading it, right? Or collecting it even. And at the end of the day, it also helps creators who are now aligned around a common narrative to be able to support one another. Like, oh, this other person said what I said, but they said it in a really cool way that I wouldn't have thought of. Let me retweet that. Let me recast that. Let me share that in my newsletter, because I think that that reinforces my message, but in a different way. Like, my newsletter is written. If someone put it on TikTok, if someone put a YouTube short out, I'm probably going to link the best content that was created on those platforms. Again, that support the message. That's another way to get people to view your content that otherwise wouldn't, right? And this is really was the challenge that I put out to Base. I'm putting stuff out there in full disclosure. I've reached out to Base and I said, this is something that we can do as a group of creators to get messages across a much wider audience in an aligned way. As an ecosystem, being Base, now that you know that you could put out a message across hundreds of creator platforms, right, or communities, there should be an easier way to incentivize based on metrics, right? KPIs, like how many views did you get? How many downloads did you get? How many, opens did you get for that newsletter? It's very easy to prove that, right? And to show someone like, here's the numbers, especially on platforms like YouTube, where you can see those numbers clear as day. Um, and there are tools out there
I
that
would
allow you
say
to get that information outside of just like what YouTube is showing you. Go ahead.
I would say like I completely agree with all those points, and I think that's definitely something that even right now we should talk about. Like, okay, what is the just to do it as test practically? What is that one thing that we might focus on in the next week or two, and we just all create content about that, and we start sharing about that. The other point I wanted to make over there, just as you mentioned X and how some creators practically it's like an oligarchy on X. It's just a few creators that have all the attention. But on Farcaster, like if you ask me, even as a creator, like tell me one, not many come to mind. Plus Farcaster, at least from since I came until now, especially in the past couple of months, even though I'm like practically full on Farcaster, it has become kind of a boring place.
I agree
Like
with you.
when it comes to creating original content, when it comes to creating original stuff and like actual thought-provoking topics and something that makes you talk and something that actually feeds the intellect and just gets you moving, that part is kind of like it's there, but it's not like nurtured enough.
Yeah.
So I also completely agree with your point, like aligning multiple creators and starting creating on that topic, because even if it's just Farcaster and like Farcaster has that vibe, that will first of all attract a lot of people to join. And second of all, more and more outsiders would want to join in. So I wouldn't even doubt that creator monetization or whatever happens after that would be a problem. The main thing is just as you said, the alignment of
Yeah.
like, okay, we're doing about this, but what is that this? Like, what are we doing? And where are we actually moving as creators?
But do you think that's a symptom of like all of us being in the same ecosystem essentially? So like we don't have too many differentiating ideas.
I think we have quite a lot of differentiating ideas. It's just that I don't know if we shared them enough.
I guess like what I'm saying is like, do you think that's because like we don't have many people that are talking about Sui, Aptos, Solana, and all the things being built over there? Like for the most part, it's pretty Ethereum heavy in terms of the boring comment.
Um, that could be part of definitely. It could be part of the thing, but also I think that right now we're like experimenting something with entertainment in Farcaster, but so
Hmm.
it was a bit too early to share it, but I'll definitely share more details with you guys soon. Uh, in the sense of what, from my perspective, what I think is missing when it comes to Farcaster is like, okay, it's not just the actual. expertise and like analysis and stuff, but more of a personal flair to the entire platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
mean, for me,
from
it's also
it,
diversity. Sorry to interrupt you. It's diversity. Like if I'm
diversity as
seeing the
well.
same people's content, it's the same. Like it basically becomes a little monotonous and boring because even though I enjoy the amount of work you're putting into, like or
Yeah,
putting out, I should say, at the end of the day, it's still your vision, your way of deconstructing a subject. It does get monotonous, and monotony creates boredom. If I were to see a much wider view of what's happening on Farcaster, I would think it's a lot more interesting. To that point, Gramajo mentioned something in our DMs earlier today, if not yesterday, where he was talking about the conversations of what happening around Warpcast wallet, right?
hmm
And how did he access that? He went to Bowie. And Bowie to me is a wonderful client for Farcaster because you can get visibility into a subject much farther out than you could on Warpcast or any other client because it's very much about just that thread that you're looking for. And now I'm like, oh my god, I haven't like I'm doing this right now. Like while we were talking, I was looking at what the conversations are happening around Warpcast wallet, and I'm seeing people talk about it that I haven't seen on my timeline. And these are people who I used to
yeah.
see on my timeline over a year ago because the algorithm keeps improving. You know, it really is making my network smaller and smaller, and it just makes it boring. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to agree with you and add some context to how I see that boredom playing out
So
too.
that actually that makes perfect sense. I haven't really used Bui much at all, honestly. Like I should definitely check it out because you're the fifth maybe person in the past 24 hours that mentioned it.
I'll tell you, I
So
was the
definitely,
second person that ever mentioned it to you. I know Peachy was the first person to ever mention it to me.
Yeah,
then
you're
We used to
Bowie.
host Farhouse. Yeah.
definitely gotta check that out. Another what I wanted to say on the things that you said, like we each of us breaks down a topic a different way. Like we if we get to that alignment as creators, even if it's just Farcaster, that would make the whole that will make the whole feed a lot more interesting for a start. Plus, all of us being small creators compared to everyone that is out there, practically, even if you look at the behemoths on Twitter and similar, being like small creators, not all of us, we wouldn't, for example, we wouldn't do like a newsletter, a podcast, and short form videos, and this and that, and this and that. So, just from the structure perspective, since you're, for example, Humpty, focusing more on the newsletter aspect, and also with Crypto Sapiens, the Gramajos also has a newsletter and a podcast, and we each have a different way of doing things. That would make it so much more. I was trying to think of the right word, but I would say like more of a rainbow kind of approach, where you can see it from different perspective and different color the same topic.
I can I can give you a recent example of where this kind of worked a little bit. So Chris, I don't know if you knew, but I actually interviewed the icebreaker guy after you, um, Jack,
Yeah.
and I ended up using your podcast actually to dive deeper on some of the questions that you had. So like follow up questions on top of the questions I had, and I had someone um, who knows Jack personally, and they were like, "Oh, I really enjoyed that podcast episode that you did." And I was like, "Oh, if you want more information," I was like, Chris did a podcast with him as well pretty recently, and we talked about completely different things, really. You know, other than like the follow up questions, like we focused on very different things, and it was great. They were like, "Oh, now I have a fuller picture of Jack and Icebreaker," and it worked well. It was really great. Like I basically got to upsell you in that whole process, which was nice.
And thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing that as well. But also, that's the other thing. Like you just we focused on one aspect. You took that aspect and focused on another aspect, and came up with something completely different, giving a more full picture about what is going on.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I used to think like it used to be very zero sum, like a long time ago, like maybe 2 years ago when I first started um, doing content. I used to think it was like, this person unsubscribed from me and then went to someone else, like to Humpty, and I was like, I used to get hella butthurt over stuff like that. Um, and then now, like I would say in the last 2 years, I'm like, it's all like all tides, like it lifts all boats basically. Like that's how I'm looking at it. Like, I know, again, Toady and the Zero Rights Media Group. Like I went on TikTok, I liked one of his videos, and he went and like started recasting or whatever the word is for TikTok, like some of my videos, and the impressions went up. Because I think they have like a decent chunk of followers on TikTok, and I'm really crappy at like promoting TikTok or even caring about it really. Um, but I appreciated that, like Humpty said, it's like the minimum you can do, and it's what I'm doing as well, because I have friends on that platform that aren't Web3 native, and I recasted some of his stuff because I like the way that they do their content too. Like it's very different from mine, which is great. Like we could literally talk about the same thing, but the output could be so different because we all have different personalities and different ways of approaching dissemination of information.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and also I have to say, like, I was down that as well. Like, okay, it's like a PV. I always saw it, especially in the beginning, like a player versus player game, which in fact trading is. Maybe that's where that mentality even came over to translating it into content as well. But we're playing a completely different game. It's a completely different server, a completely different matrix as well. So
Yeah, I think it's because we're too small. I don't think like crypto's reached this like full size of the pie. So I don't think we're at the stage of going full PvP. It's like this stage we're just trying to bring more people on chain essentially. So
Well, media is y- I think competitive in general. Like this is even outside of the boundaries of crypto. Like media tends to be very competitive. People are trying to get the most views because usually with the more views you get, the more the more you can monetize that. Using sponsorships or maybe even some more sustainable rails. Where you get different. Yeah, the sponsorship model just tends to be the most common way of getting support for your content, and so because of that, people are trying to like make sure that if they come up with some new innovation or if they find a way to connect an audience and retain them for longer, they're not going to share that. And the one thing I'm
yeah.
very proud of just generally is because I have heard this from people. This is not me just saying it. This is people that can, even in this group, the early morning crew that can attest to this, is I never gate any of the information or alpha that I have in terms of being able to engage your community or your audience, being able to monetize that attention or anything else. I'm happy to share it. And again, that's why I've really, for a long time, considered what a creators cabal would look like, and how we can support one another. So yeah, I just think that we could do better, and it's great to hear, Gramajo, that you got support from Zero Rights Media as they've rebranded on TikTok, because I think also those are platforms that are still equally important for the work that we're doing because we are onboarding the masses into crypto through the content that we create. So we obviously have to connect with that audience where they're at.
yeah,
also that is I would actually not necessarily fully disagree with that, but because each of us has different content. For example, we have had like myself and my co-founder practically that we work on different things. We've had this discussion is practically where we see personally like us, for example, and our content fitting, and where we're gonna be focusing most of the time is actually Farcaster, like at least for the foreseeable future. Like just because from our perspective, um, the content that we create is not necessarily to onboard the masses. It's to retain the people that are already in. At least that's what we are striving to do. And as creators, that is a question that we haven't really asked ourselves previously, but it's also about what is exactly, like, for any creator, what is the target audience that each creator is striving toward, and what are they striving toward? Because some of us might be striving on Farcaster, some of us might be striving more on X or TikTok or whatever. Like, just from that starting point, I think that would provide a lot more clear vision of what are the opportunities to collaborate for a start. Because then we practically have a whole content funnel at the same time.
No, I think that's a good point. Because at the end, I mean, to be honest, I don't think that we're all engaging our audience in the same point in their journey. I think if
Yeah,
you're on TikTok, let's be honest, you're not really engaging people who are on crypto like you and I, right? Because that
yeah,
platform mostly is used by a completely different audience. Like, even though some of us might be on there, that's not the content we're looking for. Like, I'm not searching for like, oh, how to use Solana on on TikTok, right? If I'm doing that, I'm probably going to go to Twitter, right? Because I think that there's a higher concentration of crypto native people on Twitter or X, right?
yeah,
YouTube, even, I would say, as far as like video is concerned, probably has a higher concentration of people who are at least familiar with crypto, but probably not as much as on X, I would say. They're in a different stage of that journey.
yeah.
On Farcaster, oh dear God, like you are so deep. You need to find a buoy to hang on to be able to like save yourself because you're just like overwhelmed with crypto native content. And so I think that as you are sharing your content or creating your content, even, you need to consider who your audience is on all of these different platforms. And to your point, Chris, if we do have this cabal of creators that are working together, if you are specializing on TikTok, you can talk about this narrative in a way that really connects with an audience who is
Yeah.
unfamiliar with what is crypto or Solana, right? To be more specific. You're not going to be talking about Farcaster. I'm telling you right now, should not be talking about Farcaster on TikTok. They're so high up in that funnel, they don't even know or care what decentralized social is, right? Now on Twitter, you could probably convert people to using Farcaster because they're already using most likely Solana or Base, right? Maybe as a degenerate, and they want to connect with a network of people that are as degenerate as themselves on a social network that specializes for crypto communities. That's Farcaster, right? So we can all communicate to one another what is the vision for the week or the month, and then go out and produce this content and connect with our audiences in different ways and onboard them more effectively. Because you know what? Maybe the next step after them finding out what is Solana on TikTok, they go and look at what I wrote about Solana in a amazing thread on X that they can really use to take that next step. And once they're on Solana, they can jump onto Farcaster because apparently the rumors that I'm seeing on Buoy about Warpcast Wallet is that it has a Solana integration, which means now you can use Warpcast, to engage with the financial markets, NFTs, meme coins on Solana using this Warpcast wallet. I think that's the way that we're become much more effective. Because I'll tell you right now, it's a very expensive effort for me to talk on all those levels to my audience because I don't own all those audiences. My audience, because I've talked to people about who we are and what, where they discovered us in their journey, is somewhere near the top. We're not the people who are oblivious, not the people who just became familiar, but the people who are curious to learn more beyond I'm holding Solana, I'm holding Bitcoin, I'm holding Ethereum. They want to take that next step. That's our audience. And so I know that's why TikTok is not the best place for us because we're not necessarily talking to them at that point in their journey. X, YouTube, those are our channels. Farcaster, because obviously once they've joined, they are on the Farcaster channel. They're our community. That's an own community, and we can keep growing from there.
Makes perfect sense. one thing over there that arises, I mean, in my head, it arises as a challenge. I don't know, Humpty, are you here? So you froze.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
here.
he's there.
I see you. I hear you. I'm dancing.
I can see him.
One challenge that, at least in my head, I think it's a challenge over there is like, okay, what are the efficient ways? Let's say we pick that topic and we go forward. What are the efficient ways to even coordinate as creators to actually get that exponential benefit? Because it's not going to be like twice, it's probably going to be 10, 100 times to each and every one of us. But
Yeah.
what is a efficient way to coordinate where we don't spend more time coordinating than actually creating?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not going to happen on Farcaster. As much as I love Farcaster, it's not happening on Farcaster. Um, it could happen on platforms that I think have massive network effects like Discord. You know, if you have a community of
Hmm,
creators on Discord, I think that's a great platform for talking about different topics. Also, because you can segment topics, you know, by different channels and
yep,
subtopics within those channels. Discord, I mean, that's why it's so beloved by the gaming community, right? There's so much you could do, and with media directly embedded into it. Telegram, though, I would say Telegram is so deep in the
a bit
meta
messy.
that not everyone uses it. Discord is a lot more familiar. I mean, I'll tell you this, like kids that I know that are like in elementary age are on Discord. So that's how easy that is to use. Right? It's so simple. You can download it. You don't need to have a lot of experience to understand what it is. You already know what the meta is there. And I think at the end of the day, this creator network that we would build would have strong gaming. Oh my god, I can't speak. Gaming effects, and isn't that what Discord is about? Like, good game, bro. So I just think that's probably the best platform to do this. I've I've
Hmm,
personally tried to some degree of success, but if we came together and said this is our mission, this we're all pushing this. It's kind of like what I said about early morning crew over the weekend. If everyone who's in this crew decided to take ownership over what we do here and do something with the content we're creating, this could be a perfect example of how this could work, right? Where early morning crew is what, six, seven of us? I don't know. It's small enough
fix.
where we can prove this concept. Like it's Chris, it's Gramajo, it's Peachy, it's Diana, it's Raven, it's myself, and we all share content and do things uniquely us on all of our platforms. This content, for the most part, is open source. Take the content, don't defame anybody, don't misrepresent someone. Those are the two things I said. But go out and share it in your own way to your own communities. If we can do this, I think it's a great example of how you can take a shared narrative to your audiences to communicate it in your own way and then bring everybody back to this funnel to keep pushing them down into that, more friction, high friction part of the funnel, which is add, 1 ETH to your wallet or whatever, a fraction of an ETH to your wallet to start using the network, things like that. But if we do this as a group, it's much easier. If we can prove this
Yeah.
concept, which was always kind of my idea of early morning crew, this was a concept. Um, I think we can prove this in a much larger network of people that don't necessarily have to record the content together also.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And like to actually prove that concept, like we have the content, and at least, I mean, I work in very methodical ways. That's why I'm asking this question. Uh, it's like, okay, I agree with you in the sense of like, it will be much easier, first of all, to prove it with like 6 people instead of like 600. Um, the question over there is like, what are the, okay, it's the recasting and everything on Farcaster, but what are some things and what are the blocks that we need to tackle right now in order to start walking towards proving that concept? Because right now, like I would say, like we do have some traction, like we know each other more or less, but at least I feel that it's not as aligned as it could be. And just by doing it, like for example, okay, the content is there, it's open source, and it's only about sharing and similar. I don't see how only that would help move to the next step.
Yeah, no,
Like I
this is
think we
not
need
meant
some
to be.
coordination.
Yeah, this is not meant to be the creator network. This concept really is
Yeah,
just about us coming together, agreeing on talking points to cover for the week, or for Monday, and then uh, talking about it together, right? So we all have the opportunity to
yeah,
introduce topics that we want to talk about, as long as they align with the creator kind of audience that we're targeting through this concept, and then taking that content and redistributing it to our networks based on what was communicated. I mean, I'll tell you right now, one of the most expensive things to do as a content creator is researching what you're going to talk about and producing the content, right? And then the distribution is, even though can be expensive in terms of the overall effort, if you've got 2/3 of it covered, the pre-production and the production of it, the distribution, it's kind of the easiest part, right? Like I wrote like at this point, right? Even for the newsletter that I create, I've talked about this many times. The agent that I created almost a year ago is doing this automatically. It's automating it almost to like an 80 to 90% level, where it started probably like automating like 20 to 30%. So it's improved over time. It's still not perfect, but this is also part of the creator toolkit, is like, how can we leverage AI to accelerate the rate of distribution based on the work that we do to re-engage the content and connect an audience to the same thing that it was a costly effort. This hour or two that we're here is a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. So how can we increase the value of the return on investment for our time? And so this is the concept we're proving here. It's not meant to be the network effect. However, if we can prove that we can come together
huh,
and redistribute and re-engage this content to our communities, we can now say, hey, by the way, early morning crew on Monday, we're going to kick off the week and we're going to talk about this. And we're going to redistribute this to all of our communities on through all of the platforms that we use. All other 30 creators that are on this, cabal, go out and talk about what it is that your perspective on this narrative. It doesn't even have to be in agreement, right? If like we were talking about Warpcast wallet today more specifically, someone could be like, BS, I don't think Warpcast wallet is the way. We should really just be going doubling down on Coinbase wallet, integrating the Farcaster social graph because they have a bigger distribution than Farcaster ever will. Maybe that's someone's perspective, and they could talk about it. But we're still talking about Warpcast wallet, right? You can go off and take what we said and add your own opinion to it. It doesn't just have to be transcribed word for word what we said, which is kind of what the Early Morning Crew newsletter does. It takes what we said and then it just kind of puts it more in bullet points where it's readable as a newsletter. But you can add your opinion to it. Gramajo could add his news opinion through his newsletter on Area 51. So what I'm saying is, this is just the introduction to an idea of how creators can work together around a common vision or narrative, and then redistributing that to their communities and channels.
Yeah, I would say WordPress wallet doesn't. There's still some more work to go from what I saw.
This is super new. So I can't wait to get it. I tagged, I didn't even realize, thanks Gramajo for putting it into my radar, that people were already subscribing to get access. I raised my hand, but it was like 3-4 days after it happened. So I don't expect to get it soon. Um, but I hope to. I want to test it. Also, want to shout out the people that did show up on our YouTube stream and are still there. Jonathan Colton, Shia Stark, SGNIWDR. I do not know how to pronounce that. Reina, and Tutorizer, who just jumped in. GM, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's always great to see the people on YouTube continuing to show up. Concurrent viewers there, 16. So this is the first time we've actually surpassed, like, I think the highest on YouTube concurrently were like 10. So great job there. And on X, a little lower, but that's because Diana's not here. She apparently draws the views on X. I don't know why, but we're at 45 today. So definitely way down from like 180 last week.
It's Toby. We have no pictures
It
of
is
Toby.
Toby. I know. We need more dog pictures.
We do.
All right.
Did you see Phil's new V2 frame? I forgot to. I'm throwing in a sneak surprise into the
Go for
agenda.
it.
I don't know if you guys saw it.
Nope.
So, did you guys ever experiment with Moxie much?
Yeah, I
No.
think I have a creator token.
Yeah. So Moxie ended up doing Moxie Earn, I think is what they called it. I forget what it was, but it was kind of like what you're saying, like an amplification tool. So you could say it's kind of like Boost XYZ, but for cast. So you could say like, hey, um, got a new V2, like new video, whatever. I'm willing to put up, 50,000 Moxie for people to like recast it, and based on how many people interact with that recast of yours, you can earn a percentage of like the 50,000 Moxie essentially. So it's just like a boosting platform for casting, but it's all based on the Moxie token. So if you're not on the Moxie token, then, you know, and not using their app, then it's like, it's not really in your face. Um, from what I've been able to gather, it seems like it's the exact same concept, but with a V2 frame. So Phil, which is confusing me now because he switched his picture. But Phil is the guy that created Bright Moments, or him and a team. Um, so yeah, go check it out. But it looks like that's where it's going towards. It looks like it's a casting amplification tool that's more native to Farcaster than Moxie.
Hmm.
Not saying Moxie wasn't. It just looks like a different iteration that's maybe not tied to the Moxie token itself in the ecosystem. Um, yeah, that looked pretty cool.
And that's sorry, what's the who's the person that did that? So we can go and check it out.
Yeah, it's Phil. So just he's one of the early users on Farcaster. So it's literally just PHIL. That's it.
Okay, Phil.
And I can give you the name of the frame right now. Give me a second. It's called Amps. So the social account is just called Amps,
Did he
and
cast
that's
about this recently? Because I'm not seeing it on their feed.
yeah,
Am's not
eh,
fun, or
yeah, Amps.fun. Yeah, exactly.
Drop it in the group chat.
Yeah,
Or
super
actually,
new, fresh up.
drop it here in the live stream chat so I could pin it also on the. So whatever we do on the live stream chat, just I don't know if I've ever mentioned, I can pin that on the screen so people can see it. And so if you
Yeah,
can
give me a
share that
second.
there, I'll pin it and people can see it on YouTube and X as well.
Yeah, it seems like kind of like what you're saying, like an amplification tool. Obviously, it's tied to, you know money is what I'm guessing.
Mhm.
But I'm always down for new amplification tools. Here, I found the original one, so it's still like not out. So it's not like you guys have missed out on. You're not too far behind. It just came out like 3 days ago. So
Of course, you got the alpha.
yeah, of course, of course.
Make sure it's the live stream chat, not the studio chat. Otherwise, I can't share it.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a second.
Cool. Oh,
Just
while you do that, um, we've been talking about ways of improving, creator engagement, growing our community here on Farcaster. I did want to, before we get too far and close to the end of the stream, I wanted to recognize that Merkel last week, after we had recorded, introduced two new members to their team. Woj, who's the founder and creator of Supercaster, aka Super, and Ted, who's been, I would say, community member number one, just based on their activity. In fact, I'll allude to Ted as community builder number one, as I know that what's his name, Jesse has that for Base, and I forget who else has that for like Coinbase Wallet, where they call themselves like this community builder number one. I think Ted for me is definitely community builder number one on Warpcast. And as excited as I was for Woj to be added to, um, here we'll show it on stream there, amps.fun or amps fun. Go ahead and follow that. As excited as I was to see Woj added, because I think that he is a tremendous builder. has a clear understanding of some of the challenges for Warpcast, right? Specifically as a client. That's why he was building Super. And I love Super as an alternate client. I would say I got to a point where I was using Super 60% of the time and Warpcast the other 40% just because they were on mobile. And when I'm on my phone, it's just easier to pull out Warpcast than it is to go on my computer to do Supercast, or even to use Super as a PWA on my phone. I was excited, a little disappointed that Super wouldn't exist anymore, but also very excited to see him joining. Ted joining for me is the most important person because we need better ways of connecting and engaging this community that's growing on Farcaster. And I think that she has a really great sense, as Woj does for the client, she does for the people. And Farcaster Fridays, FarCon, all of these were like initiatives that she played a huge role in. And obviously, you can see the value that they brought to Farcaster. Like Farcaster or FarCon LA is still the most memorable event for the Farcaster community. No matter how many meetups have happened worldwide, how many other FarCons have taken place, that was the FarCon that people talk about. Farcaster Fridays as a monthly initiative around the world. I love seeing the conversations that are happening around Farcaster Fridays because we get to see people celebrate, you know, not just the platform, but the people who are building on this platform, around the world. So I'm really excited for that. Hoping to see Ted there. Obviously, would love to have Ted. And I wanted to have Ted here today. Sounds like maybe next week might be a good day so that she can talk about like her vision for community engagement on Farcaster. And also would love to have her on the event that I'm hosting for creators at ETH Denver. Would be great if she's traveling there to be able to speak on, Farcaster as a creative platform. I'm going to also post this again, show on the stream, https warpcast.com/ampsfun/0x09b0e71d. Go check that out. That is the Amps Fun kind of product that Gramajo was talking about, which allows you almost like boost your content on Warpcast. Thanks for sharing that, Gramajo. That's dope.
Yeah, that one's fresh off the bakery. I feel like it should be a good one to keep an eye on. Like um, Bright Moments and Crypto Citizens as a whole, like they've done cool stuff essentially. So I'm curious to see how if this will fit into the toolkit as a content creator online, where it will fit in.
Gramajo, you have a question on YouTube from Tutorizer, and I'm guessing this is to do with amps. It says, why does it ask to create a signer? Does it post on behalf of my account? Now you're
Yeah,
the
I
expert,
believe so.
buddy.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it can post on your behalf.
yeah, I can post on your behalf. It's probably also needed to, yeah. I think that they actually Phil went into why he needed that, if I remember correctly. Luckily, they made changes to the way that accounts connect to your Farcaster account. Like they made it more granular, like the settings. It used to be like just full blanket outright permissions. I think now it's more granular from what I remember because this happened after I believe Downshift was talking about it when he needed microsub to be able to like cast on your behalf, say like to
Yeah.
tip or whatever. Um, he was arguing, I'm pretty sure it's a he, but he was arguing pretty strongly at like we needed more granular settings. So I'm hoping that pretty sure this is using the more granular settings, Phil's tool, but we can ask him.
Yeah. I mean, we
I'll
can
shoot him
we
up.
can bring them on.
Yeah, I'll ask him right now. I was chatting with him earlier about it, so I'll just shoot him a message.
Sweet. I mean, that's why I like Farcaster, honestly, is the access you have to people to ask these questions. Also, thanks to the people who are in the chat asking questions, because I think that really enriches the conversation.
Yeah, thanks,
By the way, I
Superior.
don't know if you saw, sorry, I don't know if you saw Colin responded, not Colin, Reed responded to the thread or cast that I shared about Paragraph. I shared it again on Sunday, this time calling Paragraph out or tagging them. Probably calling out is the wrong word. Tagging them to share what it is that we talked about, which was a very surprising shift because they were not scheduled for the conversation. We didn't say, hey, we're going to talk about Paragraph, but we just organically landed on the topic of Paragraph. I think most of us, I said, and I think it's fair to say all of us here are power users of that platform. And so the conversation came from a place of caring to improve the experience because we all are using it and we want to make sure that we're leveraging that platform as best as possible for our communities and for our content. And so I'm not going to go through the response that Reed gave, but there were several, like I think 1, 2, 3, 4 casts in response, and all really great, like actually hitting on all the points that we talked about. Because the TLDR, the things that we talked about were owning your own contract, and this is where I said this is table stakes for Web3 content platforms. We should be able to own our own contracts. Built-in recommendation engines for better content discovery, improve monetization tools so that creators are rewarded for their effort, and token gated content because people like Peachy have used that. And I know some in our community also in the Crypto Sapiens channel, even as recently as today, expressed that token gating content would be valuable for them to be able to grow an aligned community through Hypersub as well, which is kind of how you're able to token gate this content. Or if you have a channel token as well, like what Crypto Sapiens recently did with Cabal. So Reed answered a lot. I would say, if anything, one of the surprising answers was Reed saying, could you say more about our own contracts? This is table stakes for Web3 content platforms. I would recommend, if you're using Paragraph and you care to also share your thoughts on that, why that's table stakes for you. I know I will. Please do. But I think we've talked a lot about it here. In fact, I've written on the newsletter about it. Not your contract, not your content. We need to make sure that we own our contracts in case these companies ever go under. We can take those contracts somewhere else and keep publishing under them. Another one that we talked about, obviously, was the ability to reward people natively through the content we create because we have those contracts. We're able to airdrop this content. Currently, there's no easy way to be able to like reward or share the content that I've created on the newsletter to my subscribers on Hypersub the way that I can on Pods or anywhere else where I own my contract. So these are just small reasons, but owning your contracts feels like not even up for debate anymore. GM. All right, so we have a few new people, and I keep saying GM on YouTube, but GM Daiki. We have a new person on YouTube. It's been really good to see the number of people that have showed up today on YouTube, and it's a lot more active in terms of the chat. So it's been. I think that part of it to me is probably even more valuable than just seeing the number of concurrent streams, which is up to 50 on X today. Still not close to 180. Thanks for rugging us, Diana. Not even telling us that you weren't going to show up today. And you know what? That's okay because she can take it if she can dish it. If you know, you know. All right. Anything else you want to cover, or should we cut the stream here?
What do you say? There's something that Dan just posted like while we've been chatting that's pretty interesting.
What do you say now?
73,000 accounts connected their Twitter accounts with Farcaster like accounts. So like if you go to a Farcaster profile, you can see their Twitter account right below it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, man. Because that's not even that old. Like being able to connect your Twitter account to your Farcaster account. I'm surprised we haven't seen someone leverage that.
Is it high signal or low signal, you think?
I think it's high signal, dude. Like when I was talking to Jack about like people connecting accounts or like trying to bridge data over, it's like every click is like it's coming from like the heavens essentially. Like it's like if you introduce too much friction, people will just give up and not do it. I know I'm guilty of that sometimes myself. And people in Web3 have a high tolerance for this, but that's a high signal to me, because that's not that long ago you've been able to connect your account. And why would you do it? Like there's no incentive. No one came up with like a if you connect your Twitter account to your Farcaster account, you'll get $5, or no one had like a new X copy mint that was like you need to have this connected, and if you don't, like you won't be able to mint. Like there's been no incentive to do this, but 73,000 people did. Could be bots, could be farmers, who the fuck knows? But I
Yeah.
suspect it's not. I don't think it is. So
Well, creating a
it
Twitter
signaled to
account
me.
is free. So, some might say
Yeah,
low signal, but the effort you're saying of connecting that
Yeah,
is high
like
friction, so it's higher signal than just creating a Farcaster account.
yeah, I don't know. So I'm hoping someone will take advantage of this.
Are you saying that because you want a
To
free airdrop?
hell yeah, give me an airdrop. Let's go, man. Let's run it.
That's hilarious. We're such degenerates. It's like, look, I have a X account, such low signal, but give me my money.
Always, man.
farm.
Always.
It does say 110,000 connected Solana wallets, which is higher than the number of X wallets. And I'll tell you right now, I haven't connected a Solana wallet, so I am not one of 110,000. So do not airdrop until I do that.
Hey, so Phil said he can come on right now. Do we
Oh
want him on?
yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. Let
Oh,
me send.
I'll send it to him
okay.
right now.
You got the guest link. That's dope. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Give him 2 seconds. He's aware that we're asking a question regarding AMPS fund. So,
All right. For
yeah.
those of you live, you're about to get a cool little treat. We're gonna have someone new coming on the stream. Phil, longtime Farcaster builder, is gonna come on to talk about amps. Unplanned, unscheduled. Let's go.
Wasn't even on the agenda.
No, I mean amps was not on the agenda.
No, I know what I'm saying. I think it was hella funny because like I was just looking at like my random. I've been adding a ton of frames to my Farcaster, so I'm like, I don't want this one anymore because I don't want to use it anymore. Like, so I've been cleaning out house, and then I was like, oh yeah, forgot I added amps on here, and then yeah, it got pretty good traction because Phil was like, comment below if you want to get access to like this new like creator tool, and it got some pretty good engagement from what I saw. So
Yeah, because I want to know. Sorry, I got too deep into the Dan Alpha here, but yeah, I want to know what's so special about this amps or how it works. Because to be honest, I don't remember using it, so I want to find out. I'm following amps now. Get paid when friends post, and so this is working with Moxie. You're saying?
no, it's not working with Moxie. That's what I was
Oh,
saying. So it reminds me of like the same tool that Moxie created and their Moxie Earn
mm.
system, but this is like a non-Moxie ecosystem related thing. That's my guess. So hopefully Phil can give us a little bit more insight into that.
Oh, they've been casting a lot from this account. Amps Fun.
Yeah, it kind of ramped up this past weekend.
Yeah. Whoa, Phil, you're joining us from the loading docks,
Yeah, what's up, guys?
or is that a skate park? It sounds like a skate park. I can hear. No.
Hey, it's okay. I was on a boat, so
Is it pretty echo in here?
Hey, you're fine. You have the AirPods, which are world renowned for their
They're horrible.
their muting capabilities.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
How you doing, Phil? Good to have you on the show.
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Gramajo hit me up and said there was a couple questions about amps, so I'm happy to answer them.
Dope. Go ahead, Gramajo. This is your show now.
yeah. So we had Tutorizer, who's who I actually need to talk to. Now that that's reminded me of that. But Tutorizer's a Farcaster user who's a builder as well. But he wanted to know why it's asking for writing permissions, basically. Like what yeah. So I guess like what why does it
Yeah.
need it, and what do you plan on doing with amps? Oh,
Totally. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I haven't talked much about this publicly, so this is sort of the first time that I'm explaining the concept. And so the reason it's still in beta access is we're sort of working through a lot of these public facing questions. So we do launch publicly. We have a really crisp, I think, message that's easy for people to understand. So thank you guys for helping me do this. What we're trying to do with amps is solve a problem where people have distribution. and you work really hard to grow a great following, people that respect your content, people that want to see things that you share. And then when the time comes and you decide, you know what, I've spent a lot of time building this following, maybe this is something that can help me quit my day job, or maybe this is something that help me earn supplemental income for my family. You basically have two options. You can sell them merch, right, or some other consumer packaged good, or you can launch a token, which is like a one-time liquidity event, and you sell it to all your followers, and then like it totally burns the trust in 99% of cases. And that just feels like not a very repeatable model. One, like, you know, on the physical goods side, not everyone is set up to sell physical goods. If I'm following you for cooking content, I don't necessarily want to buy a blender from you, right? I just want to like see your content. And on the token side, I think we're still figuring things out. I think, you know, we're further ahead than most other places on the internet in terms of, you know, raising capital, but there's still a lot of pitfalls. I think most people probably shouldn't launch a token. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve. And my hope with AMPS is that, let's say that I am someone who has a piece of content that I want to get distribution for. Maybe I'm a brand, maybe I'm someone sharing a new product. And I know that Phil has a great following, or Humpty has a great following of people who would really resonate with my product. Today, what happens is I DM Humpty and I say, hey man, I'm about to do this announcement. Can you help me boost this? We see the Farcaster team do this all the time. They go on Twitter and they say, hey, any resharing is appreciated. Or maybe I'll hit up Gramajo and I'll say, hey man, you know, about to do this thing. I've got about $100. Would you mind making a post for me about my product? Here's a couple bullet points, and like say it in whatever tone you want. And it's this super gray market. It's like totally under the radar. It happens all in DMs. It's like not efficient at all. And so with AMPS, we're making what's called an engagement market. And so what you can do as Humpty is sign up for AMPS, and you can basically list your profile. You can say, here's the price. If you want to recast something from me as Humpty, here's what you can pay me. And the only people that can recast, you know, from my account are people that I follow. So you follow people whose opinion you respect anyway, otherwise they wouldn't be in your news feed. And so Humpty, if you're following me, then I can go and I can say, okay, I have something I want to recast from Humpty's account. You have a price that you've set for your recast. Maybe, you know, you charge $10 per recast. I can pay you that. I can click a button. It automatically recasts from your account. The money is sent via USDC to your connected wallet, and you go on your way. And the theory here of why we're starting with recasts is because I actually think they're not a very like destructive action. Like recasting is a show of support and it helps get engagement, but it's not necessarily an endorsement. It's not as heavy as like a sponsored post. And so that's why we're starting there. And I'll just say one more thing, and then you guys might have questions. Do you guys remember when Melania coin dropped the day after Trump coin? How did we know that Melania coin was real? Well, it's because the DJT account retweeted it. And everyone goes, oh, you know, Trump retweeted it. It must be real. And so retweets actually are a valuable social signal. And I think there's a lot of value locked up in this form of engagement. It's sort of like you can press a button and it lights up all the nodes in this network within a cluster of people who care about it. And, you know, long term, what I'm hoping this does is it unlocks the value of followings. And this is what sort of adds, you know, GDP to the Farcaster economy. It's taking this thing that was a gray market, maybe was super inefficient, and allowing people to monetize it in a way that's sustainable. And ultimately, if someone does something that you don't like, let's say they recast something from your profile you don't agree with, you just unfollow them and they won't do it again in the future. You know, they sort of burn that opportunity. So that's the idea.
I'll just say that I know we talk about, well, I don't want to say we because it's a big general word, but I come from the space of like building identity and reputation products. And we talk about this like reputation signal, right? But I think that we probably make too big a problem out of it, or at least the way that we solve for it is a little too complex. I like this idea that like a simple retweet is kind of this like provenance for a reputable actor, or at least a reputable account, something that we know is from a source that has been proven to be authentic user, right? This retweet is a high signal because of the fact that this person would not tweet out the wrong account for, in this case, the Melania coin, because it's coming from the husband account, right? So it's like, oh yeah, like that's the source. I think that that's an interesting way of looking at like reputation, but also as a way to like constructing a reputation graph from the much larger social graph that we built on Farcaster specifically. Where you said this is currently in beta, like what is the way to like access this right now? What are some of the things that people can do currently if they get access to it?
Yeah, so it's the reason it's in beta right now is because this is a product that's not useful until a certain threshold of your followers are already using it. And so what we're doing right now is sort of people that message me, I'll send them a link, they can register, which is the same thing as listing your profile. And it's like seeding the network. And so what I want to do is I want to get to, at least 500 registered signers, and I want to have the average registered signer have at least 3 people in their network that are using the product. And what that means is on day 1, when we launch, they can go in and if let's say they want to boost one of their casts. Okay, I just posted something. I want Humpty, Chris, and Gramajo to recast my cast because that's going to give it the velocity to get to trending right away. Okay, well, I need you 3 to already be registered in the system. And so it needs to be useful on day 1, right? And so this isn't like a cold start product. It's something that you need to sort of build up. And so what I'm allowing people to do is register. You can't cast anything. And all you do is you go in, it creates a signer for you, it assigns it to AMPS, so AMPS can recast things on your behalf, and it sets a default price. Eventually, there's going to be a whole market for this, and Humpty, you might charge more for your cast, and Gramajo, you might say, well, I want to use AI to only recast things about these topics, and so I'll have the AI scan the cast before it does it, so like no tokens, no politics. Okay, that's fair. And then you're willing to, recast for a couple bucks. But for now, what we're doing is allowing people to register signers, and we're assigning a flat fee of 0.00. God, I'm so bad at decimals. 0.01 ETH. It's like $5, right? So basically, like super low threshold. And the hypothesis that we're testing is like, what is a recast worth? I don't know. On the margin, I think it's probably worth a couple bucks. And maybe for some people, it's worth more. Maybe for some people, there's no price that they would pay. But I bet there's a market clearing price. I bet that if you make this an efficient market, which is what crypto does, is creates markets out of everything. I bet there's a price for a recast. I bet there's a price for a like. I bet there's a price for a thoughtful reply. And I think Farcaster is really interesting about this because there's no embedded advertising model. If you try to do this on Twitter, they would scream and cry because you're competing with the advertisers, right? If I'm an advertiser, I'm going to Elon and I'm saying, okay, hey, I want to pay $1,000 and I want you to insert my ad between all of these people's posts. And Linda goes to the ad team and she says, okay, here you go. And instead what we're doing is we're actually, going to Farcaster first, which doesn't have a competing advertising model. And we're saying, hey, instead of paying the platform to advertise, pay the users to boost it to their network, right? So instead of taking that $1,000 and giving it to X, and then X takes $1 for every 1,000 and distributes it to users, let's distribute $1,000 to users that are relevant and have relevant audiences and have them boost it directly to their networks natively, right? And so that's the theory, that's the model, and we're trying to seed the network now with as many registered signers as possible so it's valuable on day
1. Gramajo, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I had one, like with the whole, the spam rules. And I know Peachy, who's also in the early morning crew, she kind of gave like an analysis, like if you recast, it's like not good, basically. Like if you recast too much, that's actually starts putting you towards the spam label. But if you quote cast, it actually looks better because you're recasting but with your own comment or your own like color of something. That's almost a better behavior versus just recasting. Would we be able to limit because you mentioned AI, like it can like you're gonna be like, hey, no politics, no coins, and like I don't want to talk about X, Y, and Z. Um, will we also be able to limit like how many we have like in a month? Like let's say I wanted to also increase the price, so I could be like, there's only 10 slots in a month. Like
1. Totally.
that's all I
Or
want.
maybe it's a bonding curve, right? Maybe the first one is cheap and then as you do more, it gets more expensive. I think there's a ton of cool things we could do. We could set a cooldown period. So after you recast, there can't be another one for 24 hours. We could do an
Yeah, okay.
auction format. So you have one recast every day at noon and the highest bidder can come in. Advertisers online have had great success with this idea of an auction format. That's how Google maximizes the revenue for their ads. And so I think there's a ton of ways that we can unlock value for users. But the first step is testing the hypothesis. I don't even know if this is going to work. It's a total theory, total shot in the dark. And what I want to do is try to give us the best possible starting conditions to test it. to learn if it works. And maybe it won't. Maybe we learn that, recasts, people aren't willing to do it at any price, or maybe the price is too high and there's not a market clearing and it's not, a vibrant enough economy, and we have to switch. I think that's okay. I think we're going to learn. But right now, my goal is, one, to plant the seed and let people know that this is something that's possible on Farcaster, which I think is going to be an education campaign. And then two, if once they're convinced it's possible, if they want to join, they can register a signer. And we're sort of rolling the frame out slowly. We're trying to make sure that it gets to a good number of people in the network first, like real users, people that have built reputation here, because I think that's what's going to make it the most valuable. And so that's the plan. I appreciate you DMing me and letting me come talk about it.
Yeah, it's funny because we were actually just talking about this basically, but we were talking about so Humpty's creating like a on-chain creator like crypto cabal, and we're like, hey, can we just boost each other
Right.
to help each other? Like it doesn't, like, we're at the point where all tides, like basically like a rising tide just helps everyone essentially. It's not
Totally.
like PvP right now.
Totally.
So we were literally just talking about that. I was like, oh yeah, amps. I think that's what it's trying to go after. It's kind of like Moxie Earn, but like not tied to Moxie, basically.
Right now, at the beginning of a product, it's always like all things for all people, and part of it is distilling it down so it just does one thing, and you sort of have to stick to it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm super stoked about it. I'm really excited about the idea of being able to tie in tokens and reputation. Maybe I can say, as Phil, if you hold a crypto citizen, I'll recast you for free. I got you. Don't worry. Like, I think there's really cool things that you can do around token communities. And eventually, if we can sort of leapfrog 2x, once again, I think we're in more dangerous territory there. But starting on Farcaster, count, this week, count how many times Dan and Varun say, hey, can you go boost this on X? Count how many times they do that every week. And I bet you that is something that is a valuable service that people would pay for, because they have the benefit of a community who benefits if Farcaster gets bigger. Not everyone has that, but some people do have money that they're willing to spend to get distribution. And I want to help people earn from that salary. So yeah, thank you guys for having me. We're about to kick off like a big on-site here in the office. So I'm going to go join the team, but thank you.
Cool. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for joining. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to you guys soon. Nice to meet some of y'all. Peace.
Peace. Well, that was fun. Thanks, Gramajo.
That
Added
was
a nice
actually pretty
little
cool.
wrinkle to our discussion, right? Or a pleat to make it a lot more sophisticated to our discussion.
It could be an interesting use case. Like, definitely would like to try it out.
I was gonna ask Phil, and I think I
But
might just jump in his DMs afterwards to be like, make this for creators, like niche down, right? Just like Crypto Sapiens niche
yeah,
down is like, we're not talking to everybody, we're talking to creators. Make this for creators. I think you might be surprised with the growth potential if you really just focus on giving creators a really good platform to support one another. That's awesome.
yeah, because then you can tie in. I mean, no, just the mind is going different directions, but it can be tied like creating content or doing this or doing that. But yeah, actually, that can be an interesting platform for organic growth, for actual real growth.
If we have nothing else, I think we've reached the end of the discussion with a nice little surprise in the end. I thought we've reached the end before, and Garabajo was like, hang on, there's one more thing. That was very Steve Jobs of you. One more thing before we leave. That was super exciting.
Humpty said we have to step our game up, so I figured I'd go next.
I mean, look, this is a group project, right? Let's not have one or two people submit for you on this group project. Like,
No, I agree.
I know each of us do some banger work outside, in our own projects. This is our opportunity to leverage each other's reputation to grow what we're doing, right? So it'd be cool to see if when AMPS does go live, or if we all can get beta access, if Early Morning Crew is supporting one another through some sort of like financial rails with AMPS. So stay tuned for that. Also, the chat on YouTube was hot today. It was great to see. So thank you everybody who joined. All right, with that,
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we'll call it. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Stay tuned for the newsletter, and yeah, EM everybody.
See you guys.
All right, and we're probably still streaming, but that's fine. I'll see you guys next week. Oh, Chris, yours is still uploading,
See you
so I'll
next
send you the
week.
link later.
Yeah, I'll just leave it like this. I'll just turn off the camera and the mic.
Okay.
I mean,
Bye-bye.
even if you exit, it's okay. See ya. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.